like to call to order the January 2026 meeting of the Climate Action Planning Committee. Welcome, everyone. We do not have a quorum this evening. So we can still meet. We can't vote to approve the meeting minutes. But I can take a moment to collect feedback on the meeting minutes from folks who are here. Does anybody have corrections or concerns about them?
No, they seem fine to me.
Same.
Wonderful. Okay. Um, then I've left my, oh no, I linked them from the document. Let's see. So let me put this up on the screen. Kai unfortunately is not able to join us this evening, but he did send over a nice update on his activities for me to share. I'm just looking for my Zoom window. There's no sharing screen. That's that small. Okay. So Kai has been working on the final two requirements for climate leader community certification over the last few months. He had submitted an application for technical support for the municipal decarbonization roadmap to the DOER, and it sounds like that's been approved. And we're in the process of getting a comprehensive building assessment at our high school, which I believe because there are firms that do the retrofits that will offer these kind of assessments as a free service in hopes of winning your business. And the full plan is to use the study to apply for funds, whether through green communities, climate leader communities, or other sources for those projects. So I think this building assessment would be complementary to the decarbonization roadmap when that gets started. So they're working in partnership with Power Options Community Charge Program to try to get EV charging stations at beneficial rates at Town Hall and the Council on Aging, so expand the town's public charger capacity. They're applying for funding for a feasibility study of an energy storage facility at Town Hall, which would be financed by the AMP program. He wants to tell me what that is. Advancing Massachusetts Power. Cannot see anything on here. Okay. They had a meeting with state officials about a potential MVP action grant application for solar and battery storage at Collycott, Cunningham. And feedback from that discussion is that those grant programs are favoring projects that establish an energy resilience hub. And my understanding is that would be something like cooling center or something that sort of adds to the safety and resilience of the community. But I'm reading into it a bit. And they're currently working on soliciting proposals for solar power purchase agreements at the Milton Fire headquarters, the Central Library, and possibly other buildings. I've heard of a few others. I imagine the prospects they're looking into are sort of rising and falling as as they get more and less traction. Proposals. So, pretty exciting set of updates, actually. Kai's been busy. This is just the Milton work that he's doing. Questions and comments?
Has he said anything about the new East Milton Fire Station?
He may have, not that I recall.
Because, that's currently under construction and I know nothing about it,
Yeah,
but, I think it would be a shame if this committee let that slip by without putting a plug in for making a sustainable green building.
yeah, we should probably connect with the fire department building committee to find out what is their plan for heating fuel.
HVAC.
Yeah, what's the HVAC plan? Is there gonna be solar? And
it would it be subject to the stretch code provisions?
everything that's built in town now is subject to the stretch code. Yes.
So it has to be solar ready, but
Oh, yeah, electric ready.
Electric ready.
The wiring has to have adequate capacity for solar and heat pumps down the road. I think, and I think the big thing is the envelope efficiency needs to be at a much higher level that makes heat pumps more economical. But so is that something you'd be willing to do? Try to establish contact with them and find out?
Sure.
Yeah.
Can I do it in the name of this committee?
All opposed? This is not a vote. I mean,
Well, it's just, I don't want to go, it's much more impactful to go in as a member of a committee than as an individual.
yeah, I mean, I think we're all always able to say with complete truthfulness that we're members of this committee and as it is.
Okay.
And in that capacity, interested in XYZ, right?
So,
I think where we if we're gonna send a letter advocating something, in the name of the committee, the Climate Action Planning Committee advocates X, then we try to have a vote first. But just to say, I'm a member and I'm curious about this, I think you should do that
Okay.
early and often. There. Okay.
Alex, if I may, this is Arthur. I think you're right on target with your first step, which would be to get to the fire station building committee. Brian Walsh, former town moderator, is the chair of that committee. There was held at the Milton Arts Center about 3 months ago a public meeting relative to the future of that station, and the town has to decide whether it would keep or sell that property. That's a major first step, and maybe the committee can have some recommendations for either or both of those options.
Just to clarify, I think Hale is asking about the plans for the new fire station that's being built, and I think you're talking about
The old fire station
town's
at
plans for the
East
old
Milton,
fire.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe I misinterpreted. Were you talking about the existing or old fire station in East Milton? That was my interpretation.
No, I'm talking about the new one. That's
Being built down by St. Agatha's.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. And again, Brian would be the key person to initiate a communication with.
Okay. He's chair of the building committee.
He's chair of the fire station building committee. That is correct. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't also be looking forward to what happens with the old building in East Milton Square.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen growing interest on Facebook for what may
And
happen there.
Then there is one more matter, and that is the Atherton Street Station. which is under consideration as well for redevelopment pending funds. So I think you'd want to put that on the agenda as well for your conversation with Brian Walsh. So it'd be essentially three elements: the new East Milton Fire Station, the old East Milton Fire Station, and the planning for the Atherton Street Station.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. So unless there are other questions or comments, we can move on to the next topic, which is updates. So I have three items under updates, around the new and noteworthy, should we choose to do that as a separate thing. And then, since we last met in November, we did not have a full meeting of the committee in December, and instead, sort of split into two working groups. One working group focused on zeroing in on getting the ball rolling on priority actions from the climate action plan. So Ron and Hale, I think you're the folks present tonight who were participating in those conversations and give us an update. And then another group met to discuss resourcing and outreach, and really we talked a bit about the working on a grant application for an EEA planning assistance grant that's Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, EEA, to get some consulting support to help us engage town leaders and staff on moving from sort of planning to implementation systematically in a holistic way. But why don't we, so I have them in the order: new and noteworthy, action working group, and resource and outreach working group. So why don't we take them in that order? Anybody want to offer a new and noteworthy?
So my new noteworthy bulletin on the conservation committee is that our application for, I forget the name of the grant that we applied for, was turned down. Mainly, they said because we applied as an NGO and not as a town agency.
Mm-hmm. So that if it had come from what part of town?
Us, I think,
We can't
we can.
submit grant.
Sustainable Milton. Was it the
Well,
application was from Sustainable Milton?
No, it was from Ron's.
I have an NGO. So Alex suggested I apply, but why can't this committee apply?
Because we don't represent the town. I mean, whenever the town submits a grant application, the staff member has to sign it, or in some cases, the select board has to approve it.
And how does Sustainable Milton have that status?
Well, we were allowed to submit expressions of interest as a 501c3. I don't know, in the case, I mean, I knew that this application would have to come from the town. And in the case of EEA planning grants, I still got the feedback session where she said it will need to come from the town, and then we proceeded to talk about what a strong application from the town would look like, right? She didn't cut it off there. So I don't know, I think it's probably an easy excuse for like, hey, this doesn't look like the kind of thing we normally fund, so let's just tell them
Yeah.
it needed to come from the town.
Yeah,
I don't know. Because that wasn't even an application. So in my instance, they said, you know, okay, your expression of interest was from Sustainable Milton, the application should come from the town. That's not the end of the story,
I see,
yeah.
yeah. I don't know, I can go back and check.
I think in my case, the expression of interest I submitted is like very obviously a kind of project that they funded many times and they know exactly what it is. Like you guys have more creative ideas
Yeah,
and then,
I see.
you know, I might not know what to do with it. Could also explain why it took them months to get back there
Yeah.
when I got an almost instantaneous response. You know. All right, next.
Ron, were you gonna talk about any of the other things we discussed?
Yeah.
No, this is just around new and noteworthy.
Oh, new and noteworthy.
Yeah, new events of relevance to your sort of area of focus in the climate action plan. So that's conservation.
Yeah, the only thing I really have to add is that I had reached out to Dylan Patel from DOER, the Northeast region, to see if the green communities would support geothermal in the town. He put me in contact with an Eversource person who responded, and eventually I got a response that Eversource only supported geothermal in communities where they also supplied natural gas. And they don't supply natural gas in Milton, only electricity. So I have sent communication into what's the other utility?
National Grid.
National Grid, thank you. And I haven't heard any response back from them yet. But in speaking with Dylan Patel, he made it clear that the Green Communities Division would be happy to help probably on geothermal once we become a climate leadership community.
Yeah, that's precisely the kind of project that climate leader grants are
Right.
meant to fund. And just to clarify, when you said support, you were looking for the utilities to support a project in the sense that they've provided financial support for pilot projects of that nature elsewhere. So,
They have, there's a big, Eversource has done a big project in Framingham. And I think National Grid's done one in Dorchester. I'm not particularly familiar with it, but.
so I just wanted to clarify, anybody that might be watching, I think that the utility doesn't need to like support you to pay for and install geothermal heat yourself. I mean, there are probably some approvals you need, but you were talking about more material financial support. Because
Really, any support that they would provide, I'd be happy with consulting support, construction support, putting the well fields in. I think the utilities are looking at geothermal as a possible replacement for their distribution network of natural gas network. And that's why they're focusing apparently on those communities they serve with natural gas. My whole approach is, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So I'm throwing stuff out and seeing if anything sticks to the wall.
and after this meeting, I can give you an update on developments of United Congregational, but I don't think that's
Okay.
for this meeting. Slowly making progress over there.
Okay.
Not always in the direction that I wanted.
Right.
Okay, wait, anyone on Zoom have a new and noteworthy? Arthur, I know the waste working group met a couple times.
Yes, we have, and we shared with several of you some of the priority actions identified for the current year. This Kim chime in, distributing recycling contamination awareness information in the annual trash bills. Hale, you had mentioned at some point in time about putting stickers on the bins. That would be a little more problematic, expensive, awkward. So what we'd like to do is start by having an insertion piece with the trash bills that are mailed to all of the residents that participate in the program. And waste management provides a nice library of such pieces that can be inserted in mails. And we've identified a couple of those for consideration. And we also have to let the residents know about the fact that increases of contamination and recycling lead to increases in cost to the residents for waste management in the town. Our percent has gone up, percent of contamination has gone up considerably over the past 2 years. The threshold is 10%. That's the desired level for communities. We eked up to 12% in an audit that I participated in about 20 months or so ago, and we're up to 15% contamination in recyclable waste at the present time. And I've asked in our last meeting if our environmental coordinator can obtain from waste management and town information what the scale of increased costs to the residents would be as the level of contamination and recycled materials increases. We'd also like to establish a network, a waste management network in the town. And this would involve members of the committee, the town itself, and then engaging all of the citizens group, maybe entities like the hospitals, schools, etc., so that if there's a point person on each of these, we can start to network out and disseminate and receive information and ideas relative to waste management for the future. And then, very important, we'd like to implement an internal recycling audit. And this would have somebody taking a look at, on a random sampling basis, what people are actually putting into the recycling bins. A major complaint that has come to our attention indirectly and informally, people not wanting to squeal on neighbors and so on down the line, is the fact that sometimes when people have an extra bag of trash and the trash bins only have so much capacity, that bag might go or be going into the recycling bin. And that unfortunately increases the level of contamination considerably when waste management is doing its audit. And what we're proposing is that in this initial pass at an informal audit, we'd have door hangers that would go on the barrels. You know, they have that bar across the top that would be very amenable to putting a door hanger, letting people know. And then we'd that they didn't pass muster. Then the next step, once we have an auditing program in place, would be whereby if a barrel doesn't pass muster in the audit, then it doesn't get picked up. We put the town puts some type of an identifier on the barrel so that when the trash collector comes by, he sees it and does not pick up that barrel. So that's a little bit of an update, Kim. Additions, subtractions, embellishments,
No, I think
improvements.
that sounded like about it, Arthur. Thank you. Yeah, nothing to add.
Questions?
Are you envisioning that the audit team would be volunteers, volunteer citizens?
The audit would initially start with probably the environmental coordinator for the town.
Yeah, she
Okay.
said that she and an intern were planning to do one at some point.
But you mentioned that you could proceed to a point where the trash collecting, the drivers could not pick up a contaminated barrel. That suggests that they can sort of discern visually if there's contamination, and if they can see it, then you could ask them to you could give them a list of addresses, appropriately randomly sampled, and say, visually inspect these. And it could just be a data collection. I mean, I don't know what relationship we have with them operationally to do things like that.
Yeah, we'd want to do this diplomatically, let people know that we are doing random sampling audits just to find out at first what it looks like, provide some information out there into the community to let them know that that's going on, and then based upon the information, move it up a notch to the next step. I couldn't quite hear everything clearly, but the timing's got to be very acute because of when people put out their barrels relative to when the collector picks them up. In some instances, it's early in the morning. In other instances, it's later in the day. So the later in the day allows a little bit more of a window for auditing, but we want to make sure that it's done evenly throughout the town.
Do
And
we
we have to
know
be
if
sensitive to the fact that people are going to see somebody opening up a trash barrel. that of course raises all types of
But that's what I was
speculations.
suggesting. If you have the trash collectors do it, then it won't get picked up before they get a chance to look, and nobody's surprised to see the trash collectors interacting with their trash.
We'll
I
be
had
consulting with other communities, by the way. Brookline does this, a whole host of other communities conduct audits. So we'll be finding out what their practices are and bringing those to the table for discussion and consideration.
Arthur, I'm familiar with California's recycling program. They recycle trash, recyclables, and yard waste. So they supply every home with three bins, and all of them have stickers on the top that describe what can go into the bins.
Right.
So I hear your concern, or maybe the town's concerned about cost, but it seems to me that if you mailed these out to your citizens and asked them to put them on their bins, it wouldn't be a huge expense. It would be a really effective way to communicate what should be recycled and what shouldn't.
Thanks for that very much. It's not off the table at all. It's just a consideration for when it can be budgeted.
Yeah. Okay.
So the first step would be to include something with the bills that go out, and then we'd have in the plans for budgeting purposes doing something ideally along the lines that you're proposing.
Okay.
And I think yeah, go ahead.
Well, just wondering if there's ever been, or if there's been talk of like doing like survey or interviews. I think it'd be an interesting like study to ask people, like, well, one, like what are the circumstances perhaps that lead them to having too much trash for the barrel, and how well do they feel like they understand what can go into the recycle, or not, or like, find a way of taking like, I'd be very curious to take like a temperature check on like what people's understanding is of the process.
Yep, you're absolutely right. We agree. We discussed a bit of that as well. And we have new people coming into the community.
So in the buildings area, I guess my update would have I stole my thunder already because it would have been the town was approved for technical assistance for the municipal decarbonization roadmaps. I feel like there is momentum within town staff to complete the requirements for climate leader communities, and I'm feeling good about that.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm delighted.
It does seem like something that Kai can drive very much independently, at least a certain distance, and he's working hard. So
Do you know the timing of the advice and?
I don't know, so I'm not quite sure how long this will take, but I think he had been waiting to see if he would get this assistance, and now I think next time I meet with him, I can ask, all right, now that you have it, what is the process and timeline look like? Okay, so shall we move on to the action working group? More broad based discussion of what you guys talked about.
Yeah, so,
Is there a digital version of that?
there is, but I didn't send it.
Okay, well, we'll distribute it after the meeting.
Yeah. So, Stephen Hale and I had actually 2 meetings. And I want to say, excuse me, the firehouse thing is not on here, but it should be. Anyway, my own personal goal in doing this, after our meetings, I looked back and I saw that in the history of the Climate Action Planning Committee, we actually have had 3 rounds of trying to prioritize our action steps. And this being the last one. So, but my thought is that it would be great to be able to concretize 1 to 2 action steps for each of the 4 working groups: waste, conservation, transportation, and buildings. And those would be our focal point for most of this year. Now, having sat in on a lot of these committee meetings, I know that things come up that are relevant to climate and people want to do stuff. And it's probably important that where it's feasible, we do that. But it also would be good to just have a few small targets that each of the working groups can pursue on a sustainable basis over the course of, say, 6 months. And so these 6 bullet points are what came out of our meetings in terms of suggested activities. First one, Alex has just been over with Kai. It looks like we're on track to achieve climate leadership community status, which is probably an activity that transcends each of the working groups and is very important to all of us. Then Stephen felt strongly that we needed to develop a plan to promote the use of autonomous vehicles that are coming down the pike, use a poor metaphor. Very shortly, Hale has this proposal for a geothermal energy source, and Stephen's autonomous vehicle proposal would fit within the transportation group. Hale's geothermal energy source, I think, would fit within buildings, along with maybe work on the fire station. Our conservation group has this plan, which already was rejected once, as I said earlier, to increase the carbon, to do a study to increase the carbon sequestration of the Blue Hills tree stock. And then Arthur, as you just heard, is focused on establishing a waste management subgroup and digging into the recycling processes that the town is using. And then number 6 on this list is a suggestion I've been trying to put forward that it crosses over between the action group and the communication group. And it suggests that each of our 4 working groups conduct maybe one a month, an educational network meeting wherein we would bring in an expert speaker to discuss the issue and then have a presentation and discussion of one of the target areas I've just gone over. And we would use this as an opportunity to build networks, to invite people across the town who are interested, involved, want to learn more about each of our 4 targeted areas. So that's where we have come to today.
Anything you want to add, Bill?
No, I think covered it. You know, to the extent that Lyle is his time is resource constrained, I would, you know, love to offer him help from this committee to the extent that any of us are able to provide that.
I do ask him how we can help every time I meet with him.
Do you?
I don't think it's that easy to bring in volunteers on the details of the work town staff is doing day to day. Or certainly I've asked that questions many times and we've been invited to do anything.
Yeah. Well,
Terribly material.
one of the you know, suggestions that I had made really involving the municipal decarbonization effort is to start collecting data on vehicles and HVAC systems with their useful life and consumption of electricity and fuel and so forth. Just, you know, to create essentially, you know, a starting database that can be used to identify top priorities for fleet replacement and for, you know, building equipment replacement.
So to a certain extent, the Mass Energy Insight platform is that database. That's the database that green communities are required to populate, maintain, and report from annually.
Yeah.
And that was Kai's first task after joining us. It used to be something that Nick Connors, the assistant town administrator, was doing. He was doing the annual Green Communities report. But he left right after Kai joined, and Kai probably would have taken that over anyway. So he spent a couple of months learning how to gather that data. Some of it's like driving down to DPW to pick up paper fuel receipts. I think we had a broken fuel meter. It was like not a simple process, but that data collection occurs in a systematic way to maintain.
Okay,
It's done systematically annually to maintain compliance with green community status, and it will expand a bit for climate leaders. And then I think part of what you're describing is in scope for the municipal decarbonization roadmap, right? It definitely involves an inventory of the fossil fuel equipment at all the municipal facilities, their age, their anticipated replacement. I don't know how far it goes towards sort of projecting their remaining useful life, but they go back to his comment. The roadmap study will identify building trigger events like equipment replacement, roof replacement, painted use, substantial renovations, etc. In conjunction with evaluating electrification of heat, solar, and storage opportunities. So. Yeah, so those two things may not encompass 100% of what you're thinking of, but yeah,
No, it sounds
That's
like
where-
we're covering a lot of.
coordinating down to that level of detail becomes very difficult in practice, I think, with that. With town staff.
So have we have that data available for?
You and I, since I've been meaning to tell you that I have access to Mass Energy Insight. I spent a few months sending an email every few weeks asking for it, and I finally got it. So I have read-only access. We could sit down sometime and look through what's in there.
Okay. Great, well, thanks for that information.
Yeah, which kind of leads me to my main question of this, like, how, like you said, we've been through a few rounds of prioritization. I'm just to show my hand, like, I'm skeptical that this committee, but working alone, has the information it needs to set priorities. I always imagined it would need to be some interplay between like the emission reduction opportunity associated with an action, cross-referenced against what's important and urgent for town staff, and what there's resourcing for, what, you know, how expensive things are. So we, I think, can bring expertise about the emission reduction opportunity, you know, how important is it ecologically to do this thing, but whether the partners exist to do it, if anybody's interested, or, you know, you have to cultivate the interest. Is the money available? Is there a grant program that we could tap to do it? You need engagement from town staff to figure that out. So I always hope that prioritization would be a joint activity with the department heads and town staff members who would actually need to work on these things. How did you do it?
Well, that's where this proposal to do a series of network meetings comes in,
Yeah,
where we make an effort to bring together town people, private sector people around each of these areas and have a conversation about what we're doing and what the state of the art is.
great. So yeah, that was my next question. The educational network meeting, is that public? Is this
Yeah,
like an open meeting at the library, or is it more targeted, like, sure, open to the public, but we absolutely need the DPW director as this one?
right.
And we'll schedule it around her availability.
Right,
Okay. Then I'm double check mark on this one.
yeah.
There's no argument. Yeah.
And I'm willing to take a shot at doing the first one. Sometime.
Number one.
No, the first one of the educational network meetings, assuming there would be 4 of them in each of our 4 areas,
Like a conservation one.
like the conservation.
Yeah. So I mean, this is the sort of thing that we, I think, would talk about in the resourcing and outreach working group. We
Yeah.
only met once and we didn't get to this.
Yeah,
We talked about resourcing first.
Yeah.
This is the outreach.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Uh,
you're welcome to have a go at it.
No,
Yeah,
just that well, I think probably the structure should be like a little bit of overview material on the committee in general, and then straight into that.
yeah, but it would also, part of this would be to have an expert in each of these areas
you have somebody in mind for conservation?
Yeah, there's a guy who's a tree specialist who works for the Mass Department of Forests. I think I've talked to him before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be cool. Um. Yeah, how would we, scheduling and advertising is so important for these things. I mean, I think we'd want to record it so that people who couldn't be there at that time on that day who are interested could watch it later and make sure it's on NATV.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but then, yeah, sort of a decision up front, like do you sort of choose a time based on when the staff members you most want there can be there and then advertise that, or do you approach it some other way?
No, we would consult with some of the main people, including town staff that would want to attend and check out their availability.
Who do you think would be?
That's a good question.
Conservation.
I'm gonna ask Arthur about that because he works a lot with the conservation committee and I would definitely include them. And Arthur, who in the town does your group work with?
That was definitely on my mind. I think it would be appropriate to invite, for example, the chair of the Conservation Commission, John Kiernan,
Mhm.
and we have a conservation agent for the town of Milton, Steve Ivas, IVAS. That would be another person for consideration.
What is that role?
Depending upon what you want to cover in the agenda, you might want to include a representative from DCR,
Yeah.
a
I was gonna say
representative
that.
from the Neponset River Watershed Association.
Yeah.
And listening earlier, I was wondering, regardless of what room the meeting might be hosted in, if we also wanted to have it hybrid so that people who wanted to view it, participate in it, but can't do so because of work or family responsibilities could sign in by Zoom and participate that way as well.
The library, conference room and the council on aging both have sort of space and hybrid broadcasting.
Right.
Can MATV pick up the Zooms in the library, or is that less networked?
That's a good question. I don't know about the library, about Council on Aging for sure.
What about the fire station, the old fire station conference room?
I know they broadcast from there.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's just something breaking down of the logistics of, so we want to throw an event and invite the public, but also staff members and have people come. We need time and place. We need to arrange for synchronous broadcasting and recording,
Right.
MATV.
And the nice thing about MATV is, of course, is they can be broadcast at various intervals.
And we need the expert.
Right.
And we need the presentation materials.
Yeah.
And I think there should be some shared presentation materials across all four groups, just like the overview, and then whatever it is you want to.
Climate action plan.
Yeah.
Two
what
others.
is it? Why is it?
Yeah.
Two
And
other suggestions, if I may. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Me too. Go ahead.
After you, Alex.
I already forgot what I was trying to say.
Oh, okay. You do that too. I was going to say we would want to have the town environmental coordinator invited. Cassandra Calabro, and have announcements of the meetings posted on the town website in advance for people.
Okay, good. So the town environmental coordinator is different from Steve Ibis, is that right?
That is correct. Yes.
What is Steve's role? What does he do?
He's a conservation agent. He reports
So what is
to
that?
He's an outside consultant, isn't he, basically, to the Conservation Commission?
that is correct.
So his expertise is in like Massachusetts conservation laws and compliance
Yes.
techniques and,
Well, he's a wildlife scientist, so that would tie into all types of plant growth, animals, etc.
Wetlands.
Not just the laws, but much broader.
great.
And Cassie is the environmental coordinator who reports to the town engineer. And we now have a town engineer who's been recently hired, thank goodness. And the town engineer reports to the director of the Department of Public Works.
That's new and notable. Do you have their name?
I do not have the name, but it's Kim. Was the name mentioned?
I'm not sure Cassie said the name. But yeah, no, I don't know.
Only about a week or so ago. Is that right, Kim?
It sounded like it was very recent.
But that's great news for Marina Fernandez. And we also have a planning department now. That's both a director and assistant director of planning.
What are their names?
Liz Manning is the director of planning, and she's been here a couple of months now, or longer, right, Arthur?
That's correct.
And then the newly hired assistant director is Avant Grady, Avante. And he's got some background in climate change
What's the last name?
issues. Grady, Grady. I can't remember the details of where it's. I think I looked him up on LinkedIn and saw some related areas of study, so I was pleased to see that. But I am gonna meet with them on the 22nd to get introduced. And because I guess if we'd had a planning department for a lot of the time we were doing this work, we'd want to be working with them.
Sure.
Right? And when Josh Eckert Lee was here, he was actually quite a significant help. So I hope we can get back to partnering with them in some way. What did I interrupt there? You were asking about what these roles are.
Yeah, no, Arthur explained it. I got it.
Yeah.
So I can do some research into this
Mhm.
and report at the next meeting. Some kind of plan if you
Yeah.
want to go there, or if you want to wait until your group meets and discusses.
No, I mean, I don't think anybody who's got energy for that should
it.
try to move the ball forward, because it's important. I just haven't
I am gonna get in touch with Matt, see if he,
Panucci.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I mean, we're creating these like silos and categories to try to help ourselves focus, right? But if we find that we're thinking, strategizing, and think it's important to do something that kind of touches another silo, like the silos are just there to be helpful. So.
Now, one of the requirements of the climate leadership community certification is to have an EV policy.
Yeah. So Kai's working on that.
Guys working on, okay.
Yeah.
So is Stephen. Stephen had some suggestions on what might go into it, but
Okay, yeah, I think Kai has, pulled policies from various towns that have them, and so we're working towards the draft. If Stephen wants to send in draft language, I think he would
well,
take that into consideration. I know, so I have some more, I have a comment and a question still. So, building is my area of passion and interest. And if I was gonna pick a number one thing to focus on, it would be residential energy coaching, which if I feel like the charge of this committee is to get a holistic plan done, and to me, done means not just written, but like, engaged with town staff, prioritized, and owners assigned, and like in motion. We'll get to this in the next bit, but it's getting tough to get over that hump with town staff engaged and sort of systematic process agreed to. It kind of feels like working against the culture of the town in some very real ways. I'm not sure how much longer it's worth trying to do that.
I'm not sure I'm understanding.
I'm not getting straight to the point. If I were gonna stop doing this sort of holistic planning stuff and work on one thing in the climate action plan, it would be residential energy coaching. Because going back to our greenhouse gas inventory, it's residential building emissions and residential and private transportation is well over 90% of the town's emissions.
What does residential energy coaching look like?
So for us to get to net zero by 2050, it would mean that every single building in town has replaced their fossil fuel equipment with the electric equipment. So it looks like helping people install heat pumps, install solar, install batteries, buy EVs. And obviously the town can't help them financially, but the state does help them financially, right? So I think there are many steps along the way. At this point, I've done most of them in my house. You've done most of them in your house, and having done it, it's like not, some of it's easy, some of it's really not easy. Some of it is actually a great deal once you wrap your head around it. Some of it like has a ways to go. So there are programs we can model after. We've been launched elsewhere in Massachusetts. They have different components. So one component is like mass save adoption. That's the entry funnel to the process. You almost always have to start with a mass save home energy assessment. The default mass save has its own, they're called home energy performance contractors, the people who come out to your house, look around and tell you, oh, you should put insulation there and seal this door here, and then they give you some forms and you can turn around and bring people in to do the work, and mass save will pay them, and like it's okay, but there are other home energy performance contractors who like provide better customer education, outreach, marketing. So a lot of times one piece is the town can contract with one of them, a company like Homeworks Energy was a Sunday. You remember them? They're an example. So you get a partner like that, and that's like one piece. You could get a vetted contractor list, right? So I think one of the big challenges is, okay, I want to do heat pumps. Like, well, everybody says they install heat pumps, but like, who's good, right? What does it mean to be good? And I think with heat pumps, that's very important because you get a bad installation, they won't work. That's where the idea that heat pumps don't work in the winter in Massachusetts comes from, because sometimes they don't if they're installed poorly. And that's not something, every instance of somebody having, shivering in the winter is gonna prevent 50 people from installing in the future. Yeah.
Well, you could do a grade one of these educational networking events
Yeah,
around that topic, I think.
yeah, so I mean, I think on the, like, if I had to pick one thing, it
Yeah.
would be that, and then on the town side, it would be the school HVAC. And I would pick that because it probably, as Kai said, the schools are the biggest energy consumers of town facilities by far. And the high school's like way out there. All their HVAC is 20-ish years old, so like in the next decade probably needs to be replaced. And we know that everybody in town is like very concerned about managing expenses because we just did this huge override. The size of the override was designed around expenses growing at no more than 3% per year, and they're growing more than that. So we're already in fiscal trouble again, talking about cutting staff, in the schools, in the town. And so like in that environment, anything we try to move forward that sounds like it's gonna cost the town a lot of money, it's just people are not gonna be interested, right? But the school HVAC equipment is gonna have to be replaced when it breaks, period, right? That is an expense they cannot avoid. But if we're a climate leader community, when they need to replace them, then there will be a way for them to majorly defray that expense, right? So this is a way to save the town money. Anything that we can frame as reducing expenses is going to be a lot more interesting to the people that we need to partner with, right?
Well, part of the challenge is educating, convincing the town and citizens that these technologies are cost effective on a life cycle basis.
Yep.
And most of them are capital projects which can be bonded.
Yeah.
So it's to me it's more of an education challenge than a fiscal challenge, because a lot of the things you just said, well, the town will have to spend money on
Right.
replacements, and just have them do it in the right way.
Right. But timing it, because we know that schools are kind of on deck. So that people are already thinking about that, so it makes it easier to engage. Fire station, I think, is a great thing to put on the list because it's happening right now, right? So
Right.
you're totally correct that if we never touch base with them and they put in natural gas, then
We missed the boat.
yeah, that's a miss for us. So
Well, I'm like you, I'm interested in seeing what this committee can push the town to do,
yeah,
because I think there's a lot more leverage in putting energy into the town first than individuals.
there's certainly leverage relative to it's a small percentage of the town's total emissions, but it's a very visible percentage. Right, so it has an educational value, but I also think there's a pretty large population, and this is just from interacting with people, decent population of people who would like to do these projects and can afford to, but is daunted by the complexity. And so connecting with those people over the next few years and helping them be successful would also be, because what do you do when you're thinking about replacing your boiler, right? You talk to your neighbors
Yeah.
and friends.
Yeah.
You don't call town hall. So
No, but if you see schools and.
totally, no,
You know.
it all matters, yeah, yeah. So,
And
I
the
think it's
same, I'd say the same thing with institutions, churches and, well, what, no. Any institution at all in the town
right,
is a great candidate for trying to get them to move
yeah,
towards.
I am working on my church. And we're planning, we'll talk about it after.
Okay.
I think that's more of a parishioners discussion, we can have it outside the public meeting. Something I wanted to say, but it can't. Arthur, just to elaborate on the forgetting stuff, yesterday I went upstairs to get something 3 different times, because every time I went up, I saw something else, picked it up and went back downstairs, and then got back to where I originally wanted the thing. I was like, oh, I didn't get the thing. So how are we gonna do anything complicated with these human brains? I can't imagine.
A question, if I may, Alex.
Yeah,
They mentioned a couple of minutes ago about the schools and their imperative position in the town. Might we want to see if it's possible to obtain the energy-related plans that Cary College, Milton Academy, and the hospital might have, whether in progress or in actuality today? Could those be helpful resources? I don't know if they have them. I don't know if they don't have them. But they are large entities in the community.
yeah, if they did, they could be inspirational. It's a great suggestion. And that reminds me of what I wanted to say. You had talked about digging into the town's sort of energy data, and I think it would be really interesting to, given that there are very intense budget discussions going on, to be able to kind of quantify the town's energy costs and its trajectory, so that are we talking about 1% of the town's budget, or 5 or 0.1%? Like,
So pretty, no, it's much bigger than 1%. I know
Right.
that.
but just to actually know would be, I think that important to be able to meet our audience where they are, which is worrying about budget all the time. So. Okay. Shall we move on to the outreach and resourcing working group? I can speak to that briefly, or Kyle, you wanna, you were in our meeting, would you like to, like, Kim, were you there as well?
Yeah, I was there, but I'd have to look
Yeah.
at my notes. I'm not ready to
I
speak
know,
about
so
it.
I basically, like, I don't feel super prepared, so I've tried to
Yeah,
give the
Sorry.
guys giving you guys an opportunity to speak. Kyle, do you wanna, do you have any recollections to share?
Yeah, I think just that I think we kind of did a lot of and this I'm saying this in a way that sounds more negative than I mean it, but we did a lot of chicken and egg thinking about what are the best ways to reach out to different stakeholders, and which especially which town stakeholders would be most important to, and which ones can help lead us to other ones to speak with or make connections with. Um, I think where we left it, where there were a few um, key partnerships we wanted to pursue, or a few key conversations to try to maybe, especially maybe reset new avenues with certain decision-making bodies to start talking about policy. Um,
Oh, like the select
That's-
board?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm,
That's coming back to me now.
mhm.
Yeah. Um, I think we talked about the EEA planning grant application process in sort of some tactical detail. Again, the idea is that other town, Canton also used this grant to hire a consultant to get their climate action plan written. Um, so there's sort of an established precedent there of and that is the only grant program that's funding climate action plan development at the moment in Massachusetts. Um, I've been kind of, over the holiday break, when nobody's reachable, just been kind of reflecting on for the sake of what aspect of it, right? Like it seemed like an obvious thing to do because a lot of other towns do it, and because it's obvious to me that we need help. So getting something systematic going in partnership with the town. I've done a lot of emailing different people in the town over the various things that we've gotten done and the building code, the town meeting article this year. There's been a lot of sort of tactical interactions that I've had with different people in town. But it has felt very difficult to sell the idea of, hey, like let's get something systematic going, right? Let's get every department head to come to a meeting and talk about the plan and sort of give their feedback and help prioritize it and commit to 2 action items for next year. I mean, in my mind, that's what it means for a plan to be done. And I don't think that this committee can kind of personally, we don't have the right roles or perspective to do a lot of the work that needs to be pushed along by town leadership and staff. So I think that, I'd assume that, well, with some funding and consulting support, maybe that would magically just happen. But it occurred to me over Christmas break that actually, for the consulting work to be successful, that we need buy-in first, right? Like really only if Nick Milano is telling department heads that this is important and I need you to participate and take this seriously. Maybe Nick Milano and the select board. People are very busy, their job is hard, I think it will be difficult for us and it would be difficult for an outside consultant to get people to the table if they're busy and that's their 12th priority, I've been I had an email thread going from early November, sort of trying to get clarity on how supportive town leaders are and what steps we need to go through to get this grant application submitted. One piece of good news is that the application window has been pushed back. So I think going into the holidays, they'd said that the applications would be due in late January. Now it sounds like the application period is going to open in late January and be due in March, early March. So there's a lot more. It's not as rushed as it used to feel. And so.
Are you talking about the EEA planning system?
Yeah, I still don't have anybody sort of who's agreed on town staff to help me get that grant application done. Right, and so just as an example, we've done 2 grant applications with the town so far. We did an MAPC technical assistance grant for the same purpose that was denied because we we didn't start working on it until the last second, and Nick Connors helped me with that. But we did it at the last minute, we had no plan for a budget or for, there's always a town matching requirement, we didn't have any plan for that, and they said, yeah.
It's not real.
And then the other grant application was the one that was successful, that funds Hyattsville. And Nick Connors worked on that. And in that instance, like, actually, the town was already planning on applying for it before it came to them, so they were bought in, they were, they didn't give me a lot of opportunities to help them, but they wanted that role, they got it done. Nick Connors independently was sort of arranging the partnership with Randolph, with his counterpart over there. So I think it's really, I bring that up because I think it's really important to have a champion, partner in town staff and leadership, or leadership, but primarily staff. And we don't have that yet.
Well, how much does Kai have access to?
Kai is is an individual contributor. He's. What is your question? I think I need to answer.
Well, how much access does he have to other departments and town officials?
I mean, I think he works in the same building as them, so a lot more than we do, exposure, but I don't think he can sign a grant application, exactly.
So why can't we, instead of trying to get the town staff together to co-determine with us what needs to be done, why can't we send little short memos to the town staff saying, for town staff review, these are the steps the Climate Action Planning Committee is preparing or considering to take in the next month. Please send us your feedback.
Yeah, well, to the extent that we can say, we're gonna do this, let us know what you think, and we really can do this
Yeah.
ourselves, then I think that's fine. I think a lot of the important things in the plan are things that they would have to do. So to send them a memo saying, like, these are the things that we want you to do in the next 2 months. Let us know what you think. That may not merit a response from somebody who doesn't report to us. It doesn't have a relationship with us, and
Well, if you were gonna send that kind of memo out related to the geothermal energy center that you wanna construct, what would it say? Would you have an ask? Would you?
Well, I've already sent them. I
yeah,
said,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You can send them until you're blue in the face.
yeah, and I met with Nick Connor and there was a interest, as Alex alludes, that, budget is always a consideration. And, big ideas take time to germinate. So, I'm not discouraged. I just think it's, you just have to keep pushing and try to build support for actions that you think will benefit the town, in the long run. I'm viewing the geothermal project as a multi-year project. That to get 2 churches and the town hall engaged, I never thought would be easy. Trying to do a joint public project is a lot more complex than just, doing something with the town alone or with a private institution alone. But it's an idea I think maybe could come to fruition.
Well, I think the sort of hard goal from this committee's perspective is that all three of these buildings here have fossil fuel heat. And all of them will need to replace their heating system at some point. That when that time comes, that it's non-fossil fuel is the goal, right?
Right.
And whether it's air source heat pumps or ground source heat pumps, or maybe by the time this building needs new heat, there's like fantastic new, air to water heat pumps that are much easier to install. You know, who knows? Things change over time. But I think the starting point is the same, where you kind of need to know, you need to inventory your equipment, you need to know how old it is.
Right.
You need to evaluate whether the building's installation is compatible with heat pumps. And if you don't do any of that preparation, and you just wait until your boiler's dying, then you're gonna buy another natural gas boiler because you haven't prepared.
Right.
So I think, and then the same thing with residential energy coaching. That would be my message to homeowners, that if it's, of course, you don't know today whether you can afford it or whether it's like right for your house. So the thing to do for the planet tomorrow is to like learn about the technologies, and start learning the things you need to know about your building to be prepared to make that decision responsibly. And they're in the current state of technology and finances, there will be buildings that people just can't make that happen. You know, and that's unfortunate, but I don't think, you know, I could look at somebody who can't afford a heat pump and like scold them for not buying one. Anyway, I'm rambling. It's 7:28. Any other thoughts on this topic? My next steps are to sort of reestablish contact with. I had an email thread going with Nick Milano and 2 select board members, where I need some answers from them. I was gonna try to revive that conversation now that we're in the new year, and I have the meeting with the planning department on the 22nd, where I hope to enlist their support, and just sort of figure out who can help with this application. We'll probably need letters of support from the department heads that would be involved. And so we'll get an answer of like, hey, is the town serious about this? Through that, if we can't get letters of support at this point, like, I think I might join you in what can we do independently, action group.
So is Kai part of your meeting with that's coming up on the 22nd?
I'll invite him. Yeah, I think this is more about us introducing them to what we do. He's already pretty familiar.
Yeah.
And they work just across the hall, so we have a follow-up conversations easy for them.
Well, I did attend the meetings, some months ago, where you presented to the select board. And my sense at that time was that they were ready for this committee to be more ambitious in its asks.
Yeah,
And if you don't ask, you never know the answer. So.
yeah. Struggle to remain politic, but subsequently I did a lot of asking and got very little response.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's.
people are busy, so I think it may be that we need to keep asking in public meetings where you have their undivided attention for a second. Because I don't think the unresponsiveness is because they don't care at all, or actively don't support what we're doing, but the people I'm emailing have a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
So,
But, you know, if the members of this committee can identify actual items, you know, actual steps that can be taken and make proposals to the town
right.
that are well thought out and presented, that, you know, that allows someone to, you know, in the town to react versus having to develop, you know, the.
Well, and that's what we're trying to do, and I think we've succeeded on a few specific things.
Yeah.
We did that with the building code, and so we're gonna try to get the building code passed, and we need this specific support along the way, and we got it.
Yeah. And I think
I
that's
think we
huge.
got very,
Because
focused on
that positions the town to adopt, you know, these, you know, new technologies.
And the great thing about the climate leader communities programs, it gives every town a very clear goal, right? And the carrot to people who are worried about fiscal matters, need to be convinced. Right? There's a big pot of money over here if you just get these things done. And so I do think that the town's bought in on that and is making progress. And we help them with, you know, 2 major checkboxes of the 6. So I think we can all feel good about that.
Yeah.
There's just, you know, just a lot more that I'd like to see happening, and so we have some. I think my hope was that if we could get by in some systematic process, then it could be a larger movement than just this group that's sitting here tonight. If you had a process that department heads were aware of and participating in, it would have more momentum. But, you know, changing town hall's operational culture might be a bit quixotic for a group like this to understand. So, any other thoughts, suggestions, proposals?
Too bad Arthur didn't win his select board race.
Well,
It's still a key player in town, so that's
that
great.
leaves him with more time for us, right, Arthur?
Absolutely. But you never know. It's going to happen. Hold on
All right.
to that thought.
All right, well, we don't have a quorum, so I don't think I need to take a vote of whether to adjourn, but unless. Oh, and I. Sorry, I'm like getting really scattered here. So one thing we discussed in the outreach and resourcing meeting was maybe we could do some of what we've intended to do with a consultant with a student.
Yeah, I can briefly if you want. Excuse me. So we discussed possibly having an intern or a graduate student helping us as a consultant. I have ties to BU School of Public Health. So I reached out to an old professor there and I have not heard back, but it was, you know, break. I think they're still on break. So I will follow up this week. And I just sent Alex over what you had created for what we wanted a consultant to do. And I kind of simplified that, made it a little punchier for a student and sent it over to that professor. So I'm hoping to hear back. I think it would be a perfect project. And I hear what you were saying, Alex, about, you know, maybe we need to get some buy-in before we get a consultant on board. But if I am thinking through like what a student could do or like a student group in a class could do, like they could at least start with some interviews of the town officials, start figuring out exactly what we need to do. And I think that would be a nice first step before, and could help with buy-in before we get like a true consultant on. So I will keep you all updated on whether or not I hear back.
Now, I feel like there's some refinement we need to do, bringing together this idea of like the educational networking meetings. establishing contact and getting some willingness to participate from department heads, bringing in somebody to help drive a product. Like, I think these things are all good, and we just need to figure out how to scope and sequence, right? Because, for example, like if we just got the student first, gave them a briefing, and then sent them off to hunt down department heads because
Yeah.
we didn't have the time or willingness to do it, then I'm not sure how well that would go.
Right.
Um,
It would not go, I think. Yeah, I'll at least the first step, like establishing contact with the professor over there, I think will be helpful, and maybe they'll have some ideas for us. And I was actually looking at old projects that they've had student consultants work on, and there was I'm blanking on the name of the group in Milton that works on substance use disorder with youth. They
Coalition.
Yes, yes. So they did a project with them. So I was like, oh, nice. So there's already some connections to Milton.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for putting some cycles into that, because that draft I put together is just my best effort, but I don't know what I'm doing. So
It was very helpful to use. Thank you.
yeah.
Alex, I have one more thing I'd like to bring up with you. Kai had sent an email around about a 350.org effort to save money with clean heat, priority campaign for 350 mass. And this is basically lobbying the legislature to pass 5 different bills that would move the state forward. There was an effort back in late 2025 to significantly undercut the targets that had been set by the state, and pretty broad campaign got that sort of thrown out of the Ways and Means Committee.
Yeah.
But there are now a whole series of bills, before the Ways and Means Committee that could be promoted. And I think it'd be a useful part of this committee to actually have a legislative action group.
Yeah, I think we're struggling with the scope that we've got. I met Mike, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but it was a really exciting conversation to find out there's somebody living in Milton who, he's got a wonderful background, and the details are escaping me, but definitely the expertise to work on this sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad he's working on it. But it doesn't like fit into the charge of our committee, and it's great. And I'd encourage anybody who feels like they can contribute to what he's doing to do so. I don't know why we take on the burden of the public meeting law overhead for this, when it's not really in scope for what we've been asked to do. But obviously, there will be legislation around energy affordability. And it will either be like aligned with climate plans or kind of working against it. And folks like what they're doing at 350.org are trying to keep it aligned with the spirit of the climate goals.
Yeah, I listened to a very small Zoom session by, I think it was David Green from Holliston, and the Holliston selectmen had sent a letter to their legislatures in support of these bills.
Yeah.
It'd be wonderful if the town of Milton could do the same kind of proactive lobbying.
Yeah. No, I think if we want the select board to do what these other town select boards have done, then somebody needs to bring the request to them. You know, make the case for why it's in the interest of Milton residents for them to do that.
What group would be better
So I think that would be,
than this committee?
I think any individual in town who's got the expertise can do it. Sustainable Milton could do it. Just needs expertise and bandwidth.
Yeah.
I think Mike the Sida should do it. And if he's not familiar with like the sort of tactical steps to do that, then Sustainable Mountain or members of this committee could sort of tell him what that looks like. But yeah, I think doing it as this committee would create more work, but it's not, you know, it doesn't really help for it to be this committee. I mean, maybe at some point you'd want this committee to vote to endorse it, so we send a letter to our rep. We can do that. But yeah, these bills are pretty complex. So I remember he had a few draft bills that we talked about when I met him, and I just, you know, even as somebody who's like super interested in these topics, like I think the details really matter, and so to sort of look at a one sentence summary of a 20-page bill and say, like, is this actually going to advance energy affordability while keeping us on a track to net zero in 2050? And I'd like to see some evidence that they know.
Yeah.
Before I put my reputation behind it. Okay. It seems very thoughtful. Anyway. Thanks for bringing that up.
When is our next meeting?
Third Thursday of February is February 19th. So for those of you who are here, check your calendars. If you have a immovable conflict on February 19th, let me know ASAP. I might be able to muster the energy to move it.
I know I won't be available then.
Okay. Yeah, basically we can afford I think now 2 voting members to be absent and still make quorum. So there were 3 absent tonight. And there's nothing like nothing urgently tactical that we need to vote on. So I think this was still great, even though we didn't have a quorum. But it would be nice to like approve our minutes every once in a while. So, okay. With that, I thank you all for being here. I really
Thank
appreciate
you,
it
Alex.
all.
Thank you.
And until we meet again. Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Good evening.